Princess Kara Thesai flew her small ship away from the destroyed remains of her once powerful empire. Space, usually comforting, now felt cold and endless as she left her home behind. Her heart raced with fear and determination, and her hands shook as she steered the ship. The holographic screen blinked with red warnings, showing the damage her ship had taken while escaping. Kara's silver hair, a symbol of her royal blood, was messy and damp with sweat, and her pale lavender skin softly glowed in the dim light. She could still hear the explosions and the cries of her people as her brother, Prince Varric, attacked their capital. His betrayal was still fresh and painful. Varric's takeover was quick and cruel, forcing her to run. As Earth came into view, Kara felt a hint of sadness. She had visited Earth before on diplomatic missions and loved its cultures and history. Now it was more than just a memory. It could be her safe place from the chaos. The ship's AI warned her that they were about to enter Earth's atmosphere, pulling her out of her thoughts. She braced for a bumpy landing, the ship shaking as it entered the atmosphere. Flames appeared on the windows, and Kara struggled to keep control as she looked at the empty desert below. Hoping she wouldn't crash, she spotted a flat stretch of land her best. Chance for a landing, she gritted her teeth, pulling on the controls with all her strength, and managed to level the ship just enough to avoid a catastrophic crash. The impact was jarring. The ship skidded across the sand, sending a plume of dust into the air. Kara's vision blurred as she was thrown against her. Restraints alarms blared, and the cockpit filled with the acrid smell of burning electronics. The world around her faded to darkness as the last of her strength gave out. Marcus Thompson was an enigma to most who knew him, a former astronaut and decorated pilot. He had retreated from the public eye after his final mission, choosing the solitude of Earth's deserts over the bustling cities. The harsh environment suited him. It was quiet and unforgiving, much like the depths of space he once navigated. His modest cabin, equipped with just the essentials, stood as a lone sentinel. Amidst the arid landscape, he was out collecting water from a small rare spring when he saw the fireball streak across the sky. Instinctively his training kicked in, and he knew it wasn't a meteor. Grabbing his binoculars, he tracked the object's trajectory until it vanished over the horizon. His curiosity piqued. He hurried to his off-road vehicle and set off toward the crash site. As Marcus approached the wreckage, came into view a small, sleek spacecraft. Unlike any Earth-made design, the hull was scorched and dented, but the ship was mostly intact. He scanned the area, spotting movement inside the cockpit. His pace quickened, and he clambered onto the craft, peering through the cracked canopy. Inside, amidst a tangle of wires and shattered screens, lay Kara. Her alien appearance startled Marcus momentarily, but he quickly noted her injuries, cuts, bruises, and a worrying gash on her forehead. He carefully pried open the canopy and reached in, gently lifting her unconscious form. Her skin was cool to the touch, and he could feel her shallow breaths. He carried her to his vehicle, placing her in the passenger seat. As he secured her, he noticed the strange technology and symbols adorning her uniform. He'd heard of the Thesai, one of the more advanced and enigmatic species in the galaxy, but he'd never seen one up close. With no time to lose, he drove back to his cabin, every bump in the road making him wince on her behalf. Back at the cabin, Marcus laid Kara on a cot and tended to her wounds as best he could. He retrieved a medical kit from his old space gear, unsure if human medicines would even work on her. As he cleaned the cut on her forehead, Kara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She recoiled slightly, her violet eyes locking onto his. "It's okay," Marcus said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm here to help." Kara's eyes darted around the room, taking in her surroundings. She recognized the human from their brief interactions during past diplomatic missions. Her mind raced, trying to process her situation. She attempted to sit up, but Marcus gently pushed her back. "Down, easy," he said, "to injured, just rest for now." She hesitated, then nodded, too weak to argue. Her mind was foggy, but the urgency of her situation pressed down on her. "I need your help," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please." Marcus leaned in, Curious and cautious, who are you? He asked. Why are you here? She hesitated for a moment, then met his gaze. I am Kara, princess of the Thaisai Empire, she confessed, her voice trembling. My brother has overthrown the government. He's taken control of our military and is hunting me down. I need asylum. Please help me. The weight of her words hung in the air. Marcus studied her, realizing the gravity of the situation. He knew harboring an alien princess, especially one fleeing a coup, could have severe repercussions, but the desperation in her eyes stirred something in him, a sense of duty perhaps, or a desire to do something meaningful. Again he took a deep breath and nodded. All right, he said, I'll help you, but we need to be careful. This isn't going to be easy. Kara closed her eyes, relief washing over her. She had found an ally, at least for now. As she drifted back into unconsciousness, Marcus sat beside her, contemplating the path they had just set upon. The arrival of the desperate alien princess marked the beginning of an uncertain journey, one that would test both their limits and reshape the fate of two worlds. Kara awoke to the soft glow of a lamp, its light casting long shadows across the room. The pain in her head had dulled to a throbbing ache, and the tightness of bandages around her wounds reminded her of the crash. She shifted slightly, the cot beneath her creaking. The room was small but filled with remnants of a life lived among the stars, photographs of spacecraft, old mission patches, and a framed certificate of commendation. It was a curious mix of the mundane and the extraordinary. Marcus sat at a wooden table across the room, focused on a small, outdated computer terminal. He glanced up when he heard her stir, setting down the device. He was tinkering with his rugged features were softened by a genuine concern, a stark contrast to the hardened persona of a man who had spent years in isolation. How are you feeling? He asked, standing and approaching her cot. Kara tried to sit up, this time with more success. Better, she replied, her voice still weak. Thank you for helping me. Marcus nodded, grabbing a chair and sitting beside her. You don't need to thank me, just doing what anyone would, he said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. Harboring an alien princess fleeing from a galactic civil war was far from a normal situation. Kara took a deep breath, steadying herself. We don't have much time, she began, urgency creeping into her voice. My brother forces will be looking for me. Earth may not be their first priority, but they'll come here eventually. I can't stay hidden for long. Marcus leaned back, crossing his arms. And what do you want me to do? I'm just one person, not some interstellar diplomat or soldier. She looked him in the eye, her expression resolute. I need protection, she said, choosing her words carefully. I need to stay hidden until I can find a way to contact loyalists within my empire, but more than that, I need you to take me as a slave. The room fell silent. Marcus stared at her, disbelief etched on his face. A slave, he repeated, as if he hadn't heard her correctly. Why would you? It's the only way. Kara interrupted, her voice firm. In Thaisai culture, slavery is a dishonorable state, but it has its uses. It's a binding contract that cannot be easily broken. If I am your slave, it grants me certain protections. Even under Thaisai law, it would prevent any diplomatic incidents between our peoples and give me time to regroup. Marcus shook his head, struggling to process her words. You can't be serious. I can't just own someone. That's not how things work here. Kara's eyes softened, a hint of sadness creeping into her expression. I know it's not ideal, it's degrading even, but it's the only way to ensure my safety. My brother's forces won't risk a direct confrontation if they believe I'm already under someone else's control. It's a temporary measure until we can figure out our next steps. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration and confusion wearing on his face. He stood up and paced the room, trying to make sense of the situation. This is insane, he muttered. You're asking me to take responsibility for you, to risk my life, and potentially cause an intergalactic incident. Kara watched him, her expression unwavered. And I have no other choice, she said quietly, and neither do you. If my brother finds me, he'll kill me, and anyone who helped me. But if we do this, if you agree to take me and we can buy Time we can find a way to end this. Without bloodshed, Marcus stopped pacing and looked at her, seeing the determination and fear in her eyes. He knew she was right. The situation was dire, and they had few options. The idea of slavery repulsed him, but he couldn't ignore the practicality of her proposal. It was a means to an end, a temporary solution to a complex problem. Feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Fine, he said, finally, his voice low. I'll do it, but let's make one thing clear. I don't own you. This is just to cover a way to keep you safe. As far as I'm concerned, you're free to leave whenever you want. Kara nodded, relief washing over her. Thank you, she said sincerely. I promise I won't make this any harder than it needs to be. They sat in silence for a moment, the gravity of their agreement settling between them. Marcus returned to the table and began rummaging through a drawer, pulling out a small silver device. He handed it to Kara, who looked at it curiously. What's this? She asked. A translator, he explained. It'll help you understand our language and customs. It also has a basic database of Earth's law and protocols. If we're going to pull this off, you'll need to blend in as much as possible. Kara nodded and placed the device on her wrist, activating it. A soft hum filled the room as it synced with her neural patterns. She felt a brief tingling sensation, then a flood of information filled her mind, adjusting her understanding of English and Earth customs. It was disorienting but necessary. Marcus watched her, then added, there's a small town not far from here. We can go there tomorrow, get you some clothes and supplies you'll need to stay low-key, avoid drawing attention. Kara agreed, already thinking ahead. We'll also need to set up a secure communication line. I need to reach out to my loyalists, let them know I'm alive and safe. Marcus nodded. I can help with that. I still have some contacts from my days with the Space Force. We can use their network to send a discreet message with their plan taking shape. Kara felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but she had an ally, someone willing to stand by her despite the risks. For the first time since the coup, she felt a semblance of control over her fate. As the night wore on, they continued to discuss their next steps, unaware of the challenges and trials that awaited them. The proposal had been made, and a fragile partnership formed. Together they would navigate the treacherous path before them, each step bringing them closer to a resolution or disaster. The sun rose over the desert, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Kara stood outside Marcus's cabin, wearing simple Earth clothes, a loose shirt, jeans, and a wide-brimmed hat to shield her pale skin from the sun. She felt out of place, a regal bearing at odds with the casual attire, but it was necessary to blend in. The translator on her wrist had adjusted her accent, making her sound like any other Earthling, albeit with a slight formal tone. Marcus emerged from the cabin, carrying a small backpack filled with essentials. He looked her over, nodding in approval. You look normal, he said, a hint of a smile on his lips. Ready to go? Kara nodded, her expression serious. As ready as I'll ever be. They set off in Marcus's old off-road vehicle, the engine roaring to life. The drive to the nearest town was quiet, the only sound the crunch of gravel beneath the tires. Kara stared out the window, lost in thought. She had never imagined herself in this situation, far from her people, hiding on a distant planet. Her mind wandered to her loyalists, the few who remained faithful to her. She hoped they were safe and that she could reach them soon. As they neared the town, Marcus glanced at her. Remember, stay close and don't draw attention. We're just here to get supplies and set up a communication line. Kiara nodded, adjusting the hat on her head. The town was small, a cluster of buildings surrounded by vast stretches of desert. They parked the vehicle and made their way to a general store. Inside it was cool and dimly lit, shelves stocked with various goods. Marcus led the way, picking up items and placing them in a basket. Kiara followed, her eyes scanning the store. She felt a pang of discomfort, aware of the stares from a few curious locals. To them, she was just another stranger, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She kept her head down, trying to appear as inconspicuous as possible. After gathering the supplies, they approached the counter. The clerk, an older man with a friendly smile, rang up their purchases. Haven't seen you two around here before, he remarked, casually passing through. Marcus smiled, nodding. Yeah, just needed to stock up. We're heading back out to the cabin. The clerk nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. Well, you two take care now. It's a hot one today. They paid and left the store, stepping into the bright sunlight as they loaded the supplies into the vehicle. Marcus glanced around, his expression tense. Kara noticed and followed his gaze. Her heart skipped a beat when she spotted a group of men at the edge of the parking lot, watching them intently. They were dressed in civilian clothes, but their posture and the way they carried themselves were unmistakable soldiers. Get in the car, Marcus whispered, his voice urgent. Kara didn't need to be told twice. She climbed into the passenger seat, her hands shaking. Marcus started the engine and they sped out of the parking lot, the tires kicking up dust as they drove. Kara looked back and saw the men climbing into a black SUV. Who are they? She asked, fear lacing her voice. Trouble, Marcus replied grimly. Probably Varric men. They found us. Panic surged through Kara. What do we do? Marcus glanced at her, his expression determined. We lose them. He floored the gas pedal, the vehicle lurching forward. They sped down the dusty road, the black SUV in hot pursuit. Kiara gripped the seat, her heart pounding. The desert landscape blurred around them, the wind whipping through the open windows as they raced away from the town. Marcus took a sharp turn onto a narrow dirt road. The vehicle bounced and jumped over the rough ground, making the ride dangerous. Kara held tightly to the door, her eyes wide with fear. She looked back and saw the SUV struggling to follow, the road too uneven for its tires. Marcus grinned, a wild look on his face. Hold on, he shouted, turning off the road completely. They sped into the open desert, skidding across the sand. Kara braced herself as the ride grew bumpier. The SUV was falling behind, the sand slowing it down. They raced across the dunes with the sun beating down. Kara glanced at Marcus, who was focused, his face serious. Where are we going? She asked, her voice barely heard over the loud engine. There's an old mining site ahead, Marcus replied. It's abandoned, but there are tunnels where we can hide and plan our next move. Kara nodded, trusting him. As they approached the mining site, she looked back and saw the SUV far behind, struggling in the sand. They had gained enough of a lead. Marcus slowed the vehicle near the entrance of the tunnels, a dark opening in the rocky hill. They drove inside, the darkness surrounding them as Marcus turned off the engine. The sudden silence was overwhelming. They sat in the dark for a moment, catching their breath. Kara could hear her heart pounding, the adrenaline still rushing through her body. Are we safe? She whispered. For now, Marcus replied, his voice calm. But we need to go deeper into the tunnels. They might come looking. They grabbed their supplies and ventured deeper into the mine, their footsteps echoing in the dark. The air was cool and musty, with old mining equipment and rusty rails along the walls. Kara shivered, feeling the weight of the earth pressing down from above. They found a small alcove and set up camp, using their supplies to create a makeshift shelter. Marcus pulled out a portable scanner and set it up, monitoring for any signs of pursuit. Kara sat on a crate, her mind racing. She knew they couldn't stay hidden forever, but she had to figure out a way to contact her loyalists without exposing their location. Marcus joined her, his expression serious. We can't stay here long, he said. We need to send that message and find a way off planet. Kara nodded, determination replacing her fear. I'll record a message and send it through the EDC network. It's risky, but it's our best shot, Marcus agreed and handed her a small recording device. Kara took a deep breath, composing herself. She knew the weight of her words, the impact they could have on her people. She pressed the record button and began speaking, her voice steady and clear. This is Princess Kara of the Heist Empire. She began. To all loyalists and those still believe in our cause, I am alive and safe. But our situation is dire. My brother, Prince Varric, has betrayed us and seized control of the Empire. I call upon all who are loyal to the truth Heist to stand against him. We must end this conflict and restore peace to our people. She paused, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I will continue to fight for our future, for a better Thesai, but I need your help. Please join me in this struggle. Together we can overcome this darkness and rebuild our empire." She ended the recording and handed the device to Marcus, who connected it to the scanner. They watched as the message was encrypted and sent through the EDC network. It was a small hope, but it was all they had. As they waited in the darkness, Kara felt a newfound resolve. She was no longer a desperate princess fleeing her past. She was a leader ready to fight for her people and their future. And with Marcus by her side, she knew they stood a chance no matter the odds. The pursuit was far from over, but they had taken the first step in reclaiming what was lost. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with danger and challenges, but Kara was ready to face it. Together with Marcus, they would navigate the treacherous path before them, each step bringing them closer to a resolution or disaster. The abandoned mining tunnels became their temporary refuge as they planned their next move. The air was thick with tension, a constant reminder of the imminent danger they faced. Marcus kept a vigilant eye on the scanner, tracking any potential movements from Varric forces. Kara, despite the uncertainty, felt a newfound sense of purpose. She knew that her message to the loyalists had been sent, but the waiting was unbearable. A few days later, their patience was rewarded. The scanner picked up a signal, a coded message from one of Kara's loyalists. Marcus and Kara exchanged a glance. There, hope rekindled. Marcus decoded the message, revealing coordinates for a rendezvous point just outside the city. The loyalists were coming, and with them a chance to reclaim her throne. However, the message also contained a warning. Varric forces were closing, and they had intercepted rumors of Kiara's presence on Earth and were planning a full-scale operation to capture her. Time was running out. "We need to move," Marcus said, packing their supplies. "We can't stay here any longer. We have to meet your loyalists and come up with a plan." Kara nodded, her mind racing. "Agreed, but we need to be careful. If Varric forces find us before we reach them, it'll be over." They gathered their belongings and left the mining site under the cover of darkness, driving towards the rendezvous point. The tension was palpable as they navigated the winding roads, every shadow and distant noise setting them on edge. Kara gripped the seat, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. As dawn broke, they arrived at the coordinates, a secluded clearing hidden from the main road. They parked the vehicle and waited, the air thick with anticipation. After what felt like an eternity, a sleek Thesai shuttle descended from the sky, landing gracefully in the clearing. Kara's heart leaped with relief as the shuttle's door opened, revealing a group of her loyalists. The leader of the group, Captain Alarin, stepped forward. He was a tall Thesai male, his silver hair and piercing blue eyes a mark of his noble lineage. He saluted Kara, his expression one of respect and relief. "Your Highness, it's an honor to see you safe," he said, bowing slightly. Kara smiled, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "Captain Alarin, thank you for coming. We don't have much time. We need to plan our next move." Aurora nodded, gesturing for them to enter the shuttle. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The loyalists quickly debriefed Kara and Marcus on the situation. Varric had consolidated his power on Thesai, but there were still pockets of resistance. Their plan was to return to the Empire, gather the remaining loyal forces, and launch a counterattack. It was risky, but with Kara's presence they had a chance to sway the undecided factions and turn the tide. Marcus listened intently, his mind already working through the logistics. "We can't go in guns blazing," he said. "We need a stealth approach, something Varric won't see coming. If we can infiltrate his stronghold and broadcast a message to the Empire, could rally more support." Kara agreed, her determination unwavering. "Yes, we need to show the people that I'm still alive and fighting. It's the only way to break Varric hold." With the plan set, they prepared to leave. The loyalists had secured a small fleet of cloaked ships, enough to transport their forces without drawing attention. Kara turned to Marcus, her expression softening. "You've done so much for me," she said, gratitude in her voice, "but you don't have to come with us this fight. It's not yours." Marcus looked at her, a small smile On his lips it became my fight the moment I decided to help you I'm in this. Until the end Kara felt a surge of emotion, a mix of gratitude and admiration. She nodded, understanding his resolve. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They boarded the shuttle, and with a low hum it ascended into the sky, joining the rest of the fleet as they left Earth's atmosphere. Kara gazed out the window of the planet growing smaller behind them. She felt a pang of sadness leaving the place that had offered her refuge, but she knew her destiny lay ahead. The journey to Theisai was tense but eventful. The cloaked ships evaded detection, and soon they found themselves approaching the capital planet. The sight of her home world stirred a mix of emotions in Kara: nostalgia, fear, and a fierce determination to reclaim what was hers. The fleet landed in a remote location, a hidden base used by the Loyalists. From there they coordinated the final stages of their plan. Kara would infiltrate the royal palace, now Varric stronghold, and cast a message to the Empire. The Loyalist forces would launch coordinated attacks on key military installations aiming to Varric power. As they prepared for the mission, Kara donned a simple but elegant outfit, a stark contrast to the regal attire she once wore. It was a symbol of her intent to lead as one of the people, not above them. Marcus, dressed in a tactical suit, checked his gear, ready for the battle. Ahead, the time came. Under the cover of night, they infiltrated the palace, moving swiftly and silently through the familiar halls. Kiara's heart pounded in her chest as they neared the broadcasting chamber. She could feel the weight of the moment, the eyes of her people on her, even if they didn't yet know she was there. They encountered resistance, a patrol of Varric guards. A brief but intense skirmish ensued, the sound of blaster fire echoing through the corridors. Marcus and the Loyalists fought with precision, taking down the guards quickly. Kiara, though unarmed, stood firm, her presence a beacon of hope for her followers. They reached the broadcasting chamber, a large room filled with screens and communication equipment. Kara stepped forward, her gaze steady. With a nod from Marcus, the Loyalists activated the equipment connecting her to every screen and device in the Empire. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice clear and resonant. People of Theisai, this is your princess. Kara, I speak to you from the heart of our empire to tell you that I am alive and safe. My brother Varric has betrayed us, seizing power through deceit and violence, but I stand before you now not as a ruler, but as one of you, a daughter of Theisai, fighting for our future. She paused, her eyes shining with conviction. We have suffered under Varric tyranny, but we are not defeated. We are strong, united, and capable of reclaiming our home. I call upon all who cherish freedom and justice to join us, rise against V's regime, and together we will restore peace and prosperity to our people. As she finished, the room fell silent. The message had been sent, broadcasted to every corner of the Empire. The reaction was immediate. Reports flooded in of spontaneous uprisings, Loyalists and civilians rallying to Kara's call. The Empire was awakening, the people rising against Varric oppression, but their victory was not yet assured. The sound of approaching footsteps signaled the arrival of V's forces. Kara and her group prepared for a final stand, determined to protect the broadcasting chamber until the message fully disseminated. The doors burst open and a fierce battle erupted. Marcus fought alongside the Loyalists, his skills and experience invaluable in the chaotic melee. In the midst of the chaos, Varric himself appeared, his eyes blazing with fury. He charged at Kara, blaster in hand. Time seemed to slow as the siblings faced each other, the culmination of their rivalry and conflict. Varric fired, but Kara was faster, ducking and using her surroundings to her advantage. She reached him, a small sharp dagger in her hand, a last resort, a symbol of her determination to protect her people. Varric sneered, raising his blaster for a final shot, but Marcus intervened, tackling Varric to the ground. They struggled, and in the chaos the blaster discharged, the shot echoing through the chamber. For a brief, terrifying moment, everything was still. Then Varric slumped to the ground, clutching his side, the wound bleeding profusely. Marcus stood Breathing heavily, a mixture of relief and regret on his face, Kara approached her brother, her expression a mix of sadness and resolve. Your time is over, Varric, she said, her voice steady. It's time for our people to heal. Varric glared at her, hatred burning in his eyes, but he was defeated, his power shattered as loyalist forces secured the palace. Kara turned to Marcus, a silent understanding passing between them. The battle was over, but the true challenge, rebuilding the empire, had only just begun. In the days that followed, the news of Varric's downfall spread throughout the empire. Kara's message had sparked a revolution, and with the support of the loyalists and the people, she took her place as the rightful ruler. She pledged to lead with compassion and justice, to restore peace and unity to Thesai. Marcus, true to his nature, chose to return to Earth. He declined any formal position or reward, content with the knowledge that he had helped make a difference. As he prepared to leave, Kiara met him one last time. They stood in the grand hall of the palace, a stark contrast to the chaos of their first meeting. Thank you, Marcus, Kara said, her voice filled with gratitude for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Marcus smiled, a warmth in his eyes. It was an honor, Your Highness. He called her by the title she once tried to leave behind. Take care of yourself, and remember you're not alone. Kara smiled, a mix of sadness and warmth, and handed him a small, beautifully made device, a token from Thesai, symbolizing their journey together. Marcus took it, knowing how much it meant. As he boarded the shuttle to return to Earth, Kara watched him leave, feeling at peace and ready. She knew the future would be difficult, full of challenges as she worked to rebuild her empire. But she was prepared. Her past experiences had shaped her into a leader who would fight for her people's future. Thus ended the story of the desperate alien princess and the Earthling who helped her. Their paths separated, but the bond they shared would always be a reminder of the courage, sacrifice, and unexpected connections that can change history. Kara became the Empress of Thesai, ruling with wisdom and kindness. Marcus returned to his quiet life on Earth, carrying the memories of a journey that tested his limits and changed his destiny. The galaxy had shifted, and so had the lives of those who fought for its future.